Welcome to the GetRealWealth.com radio show, where wealth means a lot more than just building a second stream of income. Listen and learn how 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate to create a lifestyle that most people only dream about. A lifestyle that includes good health, family, romance, travel, charity, and all the other parts of a balanced life. Now, here is your host, real estate investor and mentor, Steve Davis.
Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Steve Davis, where as always we're talking about how to use real estate to build a life worth living, to build that second stream of income that is outside of your job, that comes in whether you work or don't work and lasts throughout retirement, whether you live 10 years in retirement or 40 years in retirement, doesn't matter, comes in every month. This is opposed to the strategy that is failing America, which is to try and somehow save your way to retirement. This idea of putting money in IRAs, 401ks, and savings programs, and trying to save up some imaginary amount of money that you can't outlive. But the problem is, no matter how much money you save, the minute you retire, you begin praying you die before you run out of money, which is not a good way to live. We build a separate stream of income that comes in 10 years, 20 years, 30, doesn't matter how long we're in retirement. And I want to go back to yesterday's show. At the very end, I was talking about screening process, and I got cut off just because we ran out of time as I was explaining how to deal with previous landlords. When you're qualifying your tenant, this is, it's really just as important as getting the right deal, getting the right financing. Qualifying your tenant and making sure that you have an almost perfect tenant in your units. This is where quality of lifestyle comes from. See, if you get greedy and lazy and you don't qualify your tenants because you want that money right then and you don't want to make that payment, that's greed talking. And what greed will make you do is take the wrong tenant because they're standing there with money. They're trying to give you money. And greed says, take it. Laziness says, take it. You don't want to answer more phone calls. You don't want to have to show the property again. But deep down inside, you know this tenant's going to be a problem. You can lie to yourself and say, oh, my gut says these are good people. That's not how you lease. You've got to go through every step that I've shared with you, which is credit and criminal report. Talk to the present employer. Talk to the present landlord and the previous landlord. And this is where I got cut off. I kind of I did say it, but we didn't have time to really talk about it. And that is, you have to talk to 2 or 3 landlords to truly know who this tenant is. Why? Because if you just call the present landlord and your tenant is a problem, this prospective tenant is a problem, it is likely that the landlord's going to lie to you because they want to get rid of this tenant. It's a bad tenant. They may have destroyed the property. They may have paid late every month and never paid the late fees. People out there that don't know what they're doing, that mismanage their property, I've seen them let people go 60 days, 90 days, non-payment before they ever start the eviction process. And then they run around going, man, that eviction took 90 days. No, it didn't. It took 22, 27 days. It's just you didn't start the eviction till they were 60 days late. That's why you always start the eviction. Rent is due on the 1st, late on the 2nd, grace period is the 3rd, and the morning of the 4th, there's a 3-day eviction notice on their door, on their garage door, that you've taken photos of to prove you did it, and you mail them one. I mean, you do it. Say, well, they're only late 3 days. But see, you start the process to cover your rear end. If you wait and you negotiate with them, well, I'm going to pay on the 15th. You've lost half a month right there if they don't show up on the 15th. So let's talk about handling that. And we'll start with a tenant that's been with me for 15 years. And they call up and go, I've been on time for 15 years. I would like, and let's make a more realistic number. They've been with me for 2 years. They've always been on time. They call me up and say, look, I need till the 15th. I don't get paid again. I just had an emergency. My son broke his arm. My daughter needed stuff for school, whatever the excuse is. And in that case, I simply say, sure, no problem. The 15th sounds good. But guess what they get on the 12th? A 3-day eviction notice. And they call me. They're like, I thought you said I have till the 15th. You do. You have 3 days to pay, just like the note says, but if you don't pay on the 15th, then I've already got the eviction process started just to cover my rear end. No big deal. It's just standard procedure. Don't worry about it. I'll see you on the 15th and everything's fine. Boom. Done. They show up on the 15th. But let's say it's somebody that you just leased to. It's the second month, and they call you up and say, no, I can't pay the rent. I need till the 15th. My answer is no. And this is how I say it. I don't raise my voice. I don't get irritated. Absolutely useless to do that. I simply say, yeah, no problem. Can you be out in 3 days? No, I'm not mad at you. It's just you've only been with me for 2 months. You already can't pay the rent. Maybe this is too expensive a house for you. I think it's best if we just separate ways now before it gets worse and you can't make next month and so on and so on. So, yeah, can you be out in 3 days? Yes or no. They say no. Then I go, well, I've got to go ahead and put the 3-day eviction notice on your door. I really advise you to figure out some way to get that rent paid because, again, you've only been with me for 2 months. If you can't afford the house, I need you to move out, and I need to put somebody in there who can. So, again, I'm not mad at you. It's just this is the way we run our business. It's a simple conversation. And in 27 years of doing that, guess what? I've never had one not pay within 3 days. Never. They have to take you seriously. And a response like that will make them take you seriously. Okay, this is the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. You can call me at 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65 and 36% are dead? The good news is that here at the GetRealWealth.com radio show, we know what the other 5% are doing. 70% of them own real estate. We are a mentoring group for new and experienced real estate investors. We will show you how to build a second stream of income that will allow you to retire at any age. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, please go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. My email is open. A couple of you have emailed. I'm going to answer those right now. It's AskSteve@GetRealWealth.com. AskSteve@GetRealWealth.com. If you want to call in, it's 281-558-5738. 281-558-5738. This gentleman who wishes to remain anonymous says they have a client that is in a financial predicament. They own a rental property valued at $700,000 that is 100% paid off. Bad idea. The rental income is their retirement income. I would like to know if anyone here in the community has taken money out via cash to use for personal reasons. He only wants to pull $100,000. The problem is, it sounds like they're retired. Yeah, that's their retirement. I guess it comes down to this. If they're already retired, how are they going to qualify for a mortgage? They're not. If this is, you're saying this is retirement income for future retirement, then yeah, that's totally allowed. You can do that. But if they're not retired yet, I can tell you right now, I would refinance the thing, pull out 80%, 70 or 80%, and go buy a bunch more rent property and have a bunch of retirement income versus just taking the $100,000 out to pay some important bills. So there's a lot to this question. I'll email you back. Yeah, that is exactly what I would do in this circumstance. Because again, if they are already retired and that's their only income, it's going to be very, very difficult to get a loan, even for as little as $100,000. So we'll talk about that through email. Okay, let's go to the next email, which is Steve Alfonso's the listener. He says, what about first-time renters that meet all other requirements? Should I still rent to them even though there's a chance they might be bad tenants? Well, this is the old double deposit or triple deposit scenario. And depending on how strong they are, Alfonso, get at least a double deposit. If they're mediocre, get a triple deposit. You say, well, they can't afford that. I wouldn't lease to them. I can tell you that. I would not lease to somebody who has no first-time renters that have no references, leasing references. They've got to put up that double deposit because there's a high risk with first-time leasing. They have a tendency, you don't know what their ethics are as far as debt. It's just very risky, Alfonso. So get a double if they're, it sounds like, let's answer this question the way you asked it. They meet all other requirements. In other words, they look great. Credit report, income, everything looks great. Double deposit. If anything's out of whack, triple deposit. And deposit on single family is 1 month's rent. Okay, hope that helps. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738. Oh, by the way, after they've been with me for a year and paid on time, I give them back all but 1 month's deposit. Hope that makes sense. If they gave me, rent was $1,500, they gave me a $4,500 deposit. They paid on time for a year, I give them back $3,000, so I still have at least 1 month deposit. Okay, let's see. What are your thoughts on rent with the opportunity to buy? No, I do not like that at all because you're losing your asset. You're losing your cash flow. You're losing your equity buildup. As a rule, we never sell our properties. The only exception is to sell them because we're going to take that money and go buy more properties. So in some cases, if let's say that you have decided to go buy an apartment complex a year from now, you have 20 rent houses. Sure, put as many as you want on the opportunity to buy at the end of the 1 year. But if they don't, then you got to get them out, get that thing on the market, and get it sold so that you can buy your apartment complex. So there is an exception to that rule. If you're going to sell anyway, sure. But as a strategy, a normal strategy, there's no sense to it. Like I said, once it's gone, it's gone. And you've lost the appreciation, the equity buildup, all the benefits of owning the property. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738. So back to qualifying these tenants. You collect, when you are at the site, you're at the property, and someone says they want it, they're going to give you a $35 non-refundable credit and criminal report fee. Then you go run the credit and criminal report. They're also going to give you, equal to the first month's rent, a application deposit. So if rent is $1,500, they're giving you an application deposit that becomes the security deposit, non-refundable, as soon as you pay them. See, I'm sorry, as soon as you qualify them. I'm sorry, I was reading something. As soon as you qualify them. If you don't qualify them, then you give them back the $1,500 and keep the $35, because the credit and criminal report's about $22, $23. So once you've done that, then you've got to start calling. And the first place that I call, as a rule, is the previous landlord. I want to know, would they lease to them again? Did they take care of the property? Did they move in as they said? Did they move out when they said? In other words, find out the characteristics of that tenant. But then I talk to the previous landlord, minimum, at least one previous landlord. Because as I said, that first one may be lying to you just to get rid of that tenant because they are a terrible tenant. Then I call the previous landlord and ask the exact same questions. And if I find out everything's good, then I call the employment. One question that I ask that is not commonly known is I verify their income and the likelihood of continued employment. Not a lot of people ask that question, and not every HR person is going to answer it, but most do. A lot of them are in shock when I ask it, and they go, well, yeah, there's no problems. And that's about all you need to hear. But I have had a situation where they said, no, he's a temporary worker. Well, how temporary is it? He's done in 2 weeks, or whatever, maybe it was 2 months. So I couldn't lease to them because they didn't have a job in 2 months. So make sure you ask that question. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-5738. Okay, let's now go into what I promised you on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the social media, and that is building your team. There's 2 ways to do it. I'm going to share with you the first way, which is rather time-consuming, and it's something I don't like, but I want to give everybody the opportunity to do it either way. See, the power of your team is that it takes all the speed bumps out of your journey. Example, if you don't set up your team first and you get in the middle of a rehab and they find something else that's wrong and your GC can't handle it and you don't have an expert for that particular problem, you can get ripped off very easily, very quickly, and that eats into your profit, eats into your equity, and so on. The power that I had by being a member of a real estate investor group was that I had my entire team. I had general contractors, roofers, plumbers, AC guys, appliance guys, everybody lined up, not over a 5-year period, instantly, the minute that I enrolled. So the 2 ways to do it is you can do it trial and error. You can go out there. Wow, the way I said it, I sounded really negative. I guess because deep down I feel like it's really a dumb thing to do when there are multiple clubs in town that have vendor lists. The Houston Apartment Association, we do, other companies do. they've already got your team lined up. But some people are just cheap. They don't value their life. They don't value their time. So they don't care. They don't want to pay $1,000 or $2,000 to join a group. They'll save the $2,000 and lose 5 years of their life to do what they could have done for $1,000. So the way you build your team is, the simplest way, of course, is to join a group. And I realize this is a huge sales pitch for Real Wealth Academy, but it is, I hope it's a compelling argument to understand that it probably took me, because originally when I joined this group, they didn't have a vendor program. So I had to build my team on my own. And it literally took about 5-6 years to get a really good team together. This was my 24 agents, my 40 wholesalers, my CPAs, my attorneys, everybody that I could trust. It's not that I couldn't find them easily. It's just not easy to find good ones. See, I found a bunch of bad ones over that first 4 or 5 years till I found the good ones. All right, we'll talk more about this when we come back from the break here on the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. You can call me at 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle. Listen to the GetRealWealth.com radio show to find out how you can do it too. Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. right here on AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Phone lines are open, 281-558-5738. 281-558-KSEV, or you can email me at asksteve@getrealwealth.com. asksteve@getrealwealth.com. Let's go to the phone lines now. We've got a question about passive investing with John. John, thanks a lot for calling in. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Excellent, thanks.
Enjoy the show. Got maybe 2 questions. First question, I'm a passive. I'm retired. I have about 7 different deals that I'm in. I'm in about 1% of each of the deals, and they're multifamily apartments. The question that I have is, how do I go to the next level without becoming a lead investor? I really don't have the expertise to even try doing that. Don't really want to do that. But yet I still would like to get better returns than what we're getting now with the passive point of view.
Yeah, that's a tough question because the lead investor was going to be, or syndicator, syndicating a deal is really the next step for you. But again, you don't want to do that. Have you thought about maybe putting together a little portfolio of single-family houses?
No, I haven't really done that because I just don't want to be involved with that. I've got some other things that I'm doing that take up all my time, and that's why I went to the passive route.
Yeah, the only way to make a higher rate of return is to go active.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing I know of, John.
Okay, so here's another question, and that is IRAs versus Roth IRAs, having the apartments in one versus having it in the other one. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a tough question for me since I'm not a CPA. I'm going to answer it this way. I've seen people do both, and the numbers that I have seen, the Roth comes out ahead because you've already paid your taxes, then everything you do is tax-free. They seem to come out ahead from what I've seen, but I've only seen a few of them. Do me a favor, John, email this question to me, and I'll get you with one of my CPAs. I'll get with him, and then I'll get back with you.
In some apartments where it's just cash, just regular, and then I am in some in the IRA, and I am in some where I actually converted the apartment complex deal into a Roth.
Interesting.
And it's primarily thinking about not, let's say, a refi, because that really doesn't change anything, but it's the appreciation and the value once you sell the apartments. Because in an IRA, it's just going to be, you sell it, it goes to cash, and then if you pull that out, then you're paying ordinary income. Whereas with a Roth, you get to keep everything tax-free.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, too, is that Roth is a very powerful tool, especially in those circumstances where you're holding for long periods of time.
Right, yeah. Okay, right now I'm on the road, so if I get a chance, I'll email you that question.
All right, sounds good, John. Thanks a lot.
Right, thank you very much. Bye.
You're welcome. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Well, back to building your team. I think I've got all the emails. Yes. Okay. Back to building your team. This is a very lengthy process. If you don't have somebody, I think the term is vetting these people before they get to you, because it's kind of like, I don't have any pools. I'm going to give you an example of how I got burned. I don't have any pools. Go back 20 years. I didn't have any pools at any of my rent houses. So I didn't have a pool guy. I had a problem at my house. You know, I got ripped off twice before I found a decent pool guy. You know what it takes to be a pool guy? A sign on your truck. I learned that very quickly. And that's a lot of contractors. That's how they became contractors. They put a sign on the side of their truck. You've got to be very cautious as you're building your team, because it took me 6 months. Then I found the right pool guy. He was done in 1 day. 1 day. Because I found the right guy. And I spent something like $7,000. It was a leak. I spent $7,000 to have concrete torn out, this, that, and the other. Then when I found the right guy, he came in, dove in the pool, did a couple of tests, and goes, yeah, for $700 I can fix your pool. Boom, done. But see how long it took me to find him? Because I wasn't a member of a group with a vendor program. All right, let's go to the phone lines now. Let's talk to Yang calling from Houston. Yang, thanks a lot for calling in. How are you today?
Yeah, hi, Steve. How are you?
Excellent.
I have a question about the multifamily fixed property. And if I have a 20 unit for fixed property multifamily, where's the money coming from? It come out of my pocket money? How the loan I can put that on?
Well, most multifamily loans, they're including the rehab in the loan. So if it's a $4 million purchase and $1 million in rehab, that's a $5 million loan with 30% down. Does that make sense, Yang?
Oh, yeah. So so the loan is come with it together, or is it going to be non-recourse loan with that?
It's going to be a recourse loan initially. Then when you refinance it at the end of 2 years, then it will generally become a non-recourse loan.
Okay. Non-recourse loan. I understand. Okay. So it come with the loan, you say?
Yeah, it's all one loan.
It's not that you cannot use the hard money on the multifamily.
You could use hard money on something that size, Yang.
How many units they go for the hard money on that?
The biggest I've ever seen with hard money, I think, was 62 units. But I don't know if that's a limit. And I should know that. Why don't you email me this question? I'll get with one of my bankers and get back to you, and I'll answer it on the air tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Yang. Yeah, I'm not sure what the limit is on these multifamily apartment complex hard money loans, but they are out there, and I did have experience with somebody who did buy one that was 62 units, and they did a hard money loan to conventional, and I think it took about 6 months. I think they used the hard money about 6 months. Yeah, that's exactly what it was, because I remember going, man, that's a long time to hold hard money. But it was a multifamily rehab, so it took longer than, 2 or 3 weeks like a single family house does. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. So we're talking about building your team, and I want to share this idea with you too. It's the concept of doing it by yourself. There's a lot of people that, as brutal as this sounds, they just think they're smarter than everybody. I don't know what that personality is called, but they just think, man, if you want it done right, you gotta do it yourself. Dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's nothing that I can do, with very little exception, that I can't hire somebody else to do better. I mean, even painting your house. I was making jokes about this last week. I would go into people's houses and they go, yeah, we painted it ourselves. I'm like, yeah, I could tell. It's just, these guys that do it every single day, all day long, for years at a time, they're masters at it. They're excellent. And when I saw this the other day on a forum, do all the rehab yourself. What? That's the most incorrect advice I've ever heard. Save a few bucks. Here's what happens. Guaranteed, I've seen it hundreds of times. It takes you 6 months to do a rehab that a professional would have done in a week and a half, 2 weeks. You lost 5 months rent, which at $1,500 is what? $7,500. You lost $7,500 to save $3,000. You lost $7,500 to save $3,000. Pay your GC, your general contractor. Do not do the rehabs yourself. Period. You're doing it wrong if you're doing that. You think you're saving money. You're not. I've never seen anybody save money except for professional contractors. That's their lifeblood, that buy rent houses and rehab them themselves. They're professional contractors. Sure, they can do it in 2 weeks. But if you're going to try to rehab a house and you are not an expert at it, it's going to take you months. I've seen people take over a year, by the way. Months to do what should have been done in a couple of weeks. So don't do that. Okay, so we're talking about building your team, and I guess it really all comes down to, it's hard for me to even discuss doing it the other way. Why would you waste 5 years of your time, and like I did, 10,000, 7,000 or more, trying to find the right person, when you could just join a club for $1,000 and they've got all these vetted people ready for you? Instantly your team is built. It just makes no sense to me, so it's very difficult for me to talk about it. All right, phone lines are open. We're coming up on the final segment of the show. If you've got a question, give me a call at 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to AM 700, the voice of Texas. Thanks for listening. Did you know that 70% of the millionaires in America used real estate as their main investment vehicle? You can and should have some real estate in your portfolio. This is Steve Davis, host of the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Starting with bad credit and no money at age 27, I began investing in real estate. By 30, I was retired. I will be explaining this at a free 2-hour introductory workshop this month. If you would like to attend, go to GetRealWealth.com. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Yes, I am teaching this evening live from 6:30 to 8:30. This is an email from Anthony. But I cannot reserve you a seat. You have to do that online. You can do it from your phone or whatever device. It's GetRealWealth.com, GetRealWealth.com. Click the upper right-hand corner where it says free workshop, and it will have the location, and you can reserve a seat there. That's anybody that wants to find out how our mentoring works, see some case studies of both single family and apartment complexes, and I also share some principles that I use to run my family and businesses with. So it's a pretty complete presentation, and it's only 2 hours. We're done and out of there. We start at 6:30. Everybody's done and out of there by 8:30. So if you would like to come to that and meet me, it's GetRealWealth.com, upper right-hand corner will say free workshop. So let's get back to some emails now. Advertising. Okay, this is from Megan. She's wondering if she should advertise during renovation. This is a tough question. I have actually sold houses that were in the middle of renovation. These would be flip deals. I think, Megan, you're talking about leasing. Leasing, not flipping, based off your email. I've never leased a property when it was in the middle of rehab. I don't know what it is, but people who are renting don't seem to have an imagination. When they see a house torn up, they see themselves living there in a house that's torn up. So you need to be very cautious when doing this. If you're going to renovate a house for rental, I prefer waiting until the rehab is all but finished. I mean, we're talking a day out, and then I put my sign in the front yard and so on. Whereas with a flip, I actually keep a sign in the front yard that the property is for sale. And I would have to say that the reason it did sell is because the wife wanted to pick out the colors. It had obviously not been painted yet. So she said, if we buy this house, can we pick the colors? I said, of course, no problem. And she got emotionally attached to the house. It was also in a very desirable neighborhood with not many properties for sale. So people were kind of desperate. So the only time I've had a good experience advertising a house under rehab was in that circumstance. Most of the time, probably 80+% of the time, it's much better to finish it and then market it, because people do not have an imagination as a rule. Hope that helps. Okay, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738. Debating getting my tub refinished versus a tub surround. Now, this is an easy one for me. I'm not a fan of tub surrounds. It makes you look like and you actually said this, Nate. It makes you look like a cheap hotel. So I use the epoxy. I get it done professionally. You're saying this guy's charging you $700 and something, $750 to do it, and I'm only paying around $300, $350 to get it done. So that price seems way out of line, and that's probably why you're leaning towards the prefab. But I'm warning you, that prefab looks like garbage when it's in. I hope I didn't hurt somebody's feelings by saying that. By comparison to resealing it, the reseal looks amazing. And I've had some of them for 5 years, still perfect shape. They last a long time. And it looks like the original equipment. It doesn't look like a prefab. So I hope that helps. All right, phone lines are open, 281-558-5738, 281-558-5738. This one is from a Gail. and her daughter, oh boy. Oh, but this was for college. You know, I tell you never to lease to a relative. It has a tendency, a heavy weighted tendency, to end poorly. This is one of those circumstances. The situation is she acts like it's her house now, but I'm not laughing. She's only a block from the beach, so this must be in Galveston. This is a situation where been out of school for 6 months now and is working. I would like them to get out. She leased it a 3-bedroom to 3 girls, including her daughter. School's over and they haven't moved out. I see this all the time when you involve relatives. Worst idea ever, lease to a relative or lease to a friend. Seldom does it end well. Very, very seldom. So what should you do? I would offer, because she's trying to figure out how to not harm her relationship with her daughter. What I would do is, now that she's working, I would say, look, you've got to get your own apartment. I'll pay your security deposit. You just pay the rent. If that doesn't work, maybe you pay the first month's rent and security deposit, so she has no excuse for not moving. The other 2, you may have to evict them if they don't move out. Another option, sell the property. Force them out that way. But again, if you want to save the relationship, the giving them the first month's rent and the security deposit at an apartment seems like a really fair deal. And I hope that works for you, because you got yourself into a lot of trouble by doing that. One of the things that you have to make very clear with relatives is every single aspect of the deal. Every single aspect. In other words, you should have told her from day one, as soon as you graduate college, you have to move out. Or you could say, as soon as you get a job, you have to move out, if you wanted to give them a little leeway. But that should have been done up front, so there's no misunderstanding, no mistrust, no hurt feelings, and so on. Okay, next is Jack, rental property investor. I priced my property with comparable rents. It's in better condition than some listed for the same price. Much better condition. I had a ton of interest. Get a few emails a day. Most don't qualify. I've done about 4 tours in the last 3 weeks. It's been listed. Last tour was very interested, but it seemed they went with another place. I have another month before the house becomes vacant, which I budgeted. Okay, there's a big problem right there. You need to understand, Jack, that leasing a house with people in it is very difficult. I think it comes down to the imagination thing again. People look at, Jack, I wonder, how nice is the furniture? Are they looking in there, seeing cheap furniture, seeing it messy, not necessarily dirty, but messy, and going, oh, I don't want to live here? It's just negative, as a rule, to try and lease a property with the present tenants in there. You need to get them out, and I guarantee your luck's going to change. The other thing I was going to tell you, you are also in the wrong arena. This is a $2,800 lease. You're in the wrong arena, meaning you're in the high end. I bet you don't have a lot of positive cash flow on this deal. Remember to stay in that $150,000 to $220,000 range. The $1,500 to $1,800 a month rent, those things lease in a week in Texas. 2 weeks max. $2,800, it can take months to lease. So this may not be uncommon at all. But you do have several things going against you. 1, you still got the tenant in place. 2, you're in the high end. What you can do, Jack, is you can go and check the days on market for a rent property in that neighborhood. And I bet you're going to find it's 4, 5, 6 months for houses with that high of a rent. So You didn't ask this, but I'm going to tell you, I would sell this house, take the equity, and go buy 4 or 5. I'm assuming, this is an expensive house, and go buy 4 or 5 $150,000 to $220,000 homes that each produce you $400 a month cash flow. You're going to make a lot more money, a much higher rate of return. They're going to be easier to lease, easier to manage, and you're going to make a lot more money, Jack. So that's my recommendation, even though you didn't ask for it. Okay, phone lines are open. Just a couple more minutes. 281-558-5738. 281-558-5738. Okay, this is Ashley. She's got a property. She's trying to wholesale, and oh boy, she did it without building her buyer's list first. Ashley, you did it backwards. It is very difficult to find buyers for wholesale deals unless you have them lined up in advance. This is a very common mistake. So do not beat yourself up on this, but be aware that your next step, if you lose this deal, and I'm sorry to be negative, which is a high probability, don't worry about it. Join a real estate investor club like ours. Build your buyer's list first, then go find the deals that they want, and they'll sell within 24 hours, 48 hours. Okay, this has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
This has been the GetRealWealth.com radio show. Please remember that this show is for entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investing advice. Always get a professional opinion before making any investment decision. To find out about the mentoring and consulting at Real Wealth Academy, visit GetRealWealth.com and attend one of our free introductory workshops on real estate investing. That's GetRealWealth.com. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.